All right, everybody, it's the Working Fans Podcast with the man they call Dave. And today we have former wrestler, news anchor, Emmy Award winner, and more importantly, the voice of NWA Power, Mr. Joe Galli.
That's right. The man called Joe.
The man called Joe.
Not
That's
as cool as Dave. Not as cool as Dave.
No, that's fine, man. I love it. All right, NWA. First, a little bit about you. I'm just so excited to talk about NWA 74. Available on Fight TV, 8 o'clock, Saturday, Sunday. A little bit about you. Where did you grow up?
I was born and raised in Los Angeles, in the San Fernando Valley, to be more specific. Standard working class family sort of, upbringing. Went to Catholic school, and of course, that's where you start your first love into the sport of professional wrestling. I still have one of my fond memories I have is it was when, all my friends, they all had cable. And so they'd get to watch Raw is War and stuff. And I wasn't fortunate enough to have that. But then, WWE, we're expanding. We're going on this brand new channel called UPN. For kids out there, this is before they had Fox. Fox was there, but SmackDown wasn't going on. So SmackDown was going to debut and be kind of the flagship show for this new channel, UPN, which I think eventually became the CW. But I remember just sitting on the carpet, right up against the TV. My dad was, had a couple of Budweisers and was already falling asleep on the couch. But I was ready to watch SmackDown and see The Rock come out. And then you really get hooked from there. And then it's like appointment viewing at that point. So that's where my love from pro wrestling really started, was at that moment.
And how did you end up breaking into the business?
Well, you do the things that they tell you not to do. You love wrestling, your buddies love wrestling, so you end up doing some backyard BS that's really dangerous. People got hurt. It's not a good idea. It's never a good idea. But in all honesty, it's boys will be boys, as they said. And so you end up doing a bunch of stupid stuff, in a backyard. You rent a bounce house, just silly things like that when you're a child. But I was really never an athletic person. I'm actually probably in the best shape I've been in a very, very long time. And but especially back then, I was kind of a doughy kid with not much muscles in the arms. But a good friend of mine, Brandon Taylor, who wrestles under the name Robert Baines now, works for New Japan, and he had found an ad in a paper. So that's really dating myself at this point. There's actual physical paper. I believe it was the LA Daily News. It wasn't the Times. And it was a 2-for-1 coupon for this wrestling school called makemeaprowrestler.com. Back when it was also cool to put .com in the name of your business. And he's like, hey, 2-for-1, you want to just go with me and we'll see how it is? And it was like, all right, cool. And, from that first, training seminar that I was there, I was just hooked. You just taking the bumps and doing all the things and actually learning the craft of pro wrestling. I got hooked. Sometimes you hear people, they take that, I wasn't into anything, and then I did one small bump of coke, and then I was addicted. It was kind of like that with wrestling for me. So I guess, here we go. And then I just got launched into it and just started, being an indie wrestler, working. I used to have Jim Cornette as a broadcast partner, and he would always use the term Outlaw Mud Show. Right. And I was definitely one of them Outlaw Mud Show folks, just kind of working in VFW halls and bars and all kinds of stuff in the greater Los Angeles area. So that's when I got my first kind of break into the business. I never made it very far anywhere. I wasn't particularly good. And then eventually I was able to kind of transfer the skills that I was acquiring as a journalist and as a broadcaster for television and bring those into pro wrestling. So it's cool.
Yeah, no, I love, I say this all the time whenever we have people from the NWA on, very authentic too. You guys are always just who you are. It feels very normal. We're just mentioning New Japan, WWE, you know what I mean? Where it feels like other interviews, sometimes people are have to tiptoe around, or we don't want to mention these other companies sometimes.
It's bizarre. It doesn't make sense, especially in this climate. I mean, even when you watch WWE programming, look at what happened at the last year's or this past year's Royal Rumble with Mickie James coming out with the Impact Women's Championship on her waist. You can't live in a world where it's a bubble. All wrestling fans, everything kind of intermingles. I don't think there's a lot of people out there that watch NWA Power, watch NWA USA, and don't also care about what happens on Dynamite, Rampage, Raw, SmackDown, Impact, ROH, or even New Japan. Like you're going to have a lot of crossover with it. You see a lot of crossover with the athletes that we have. Mm-hmm. And that's a beautiful thing. I think that, the more that we can all work together, the more the fans will enjoy the experience. And really, at the end of the day, the more money we can all make. Right. we could fight it all out against each other, or we could all kind of join forces to make a better product and to feature more talent, more stars, and to really get more eyeballs on things. So and that's kind of the philosophy it is. And if you look way back into the way that wrestling was structured, when the NWA was the alliance of all these different territories, there was that level of cooperation. Obviously, bookers are going to be bookers, but there was always, here's our world champion. They'll go to this territory. They'll go to this territory. Let's have a hot tag team. And they have another hot tag team. And, let's take that and let's move it. Oh, it's doing great in Missouri. We've burned out that crowd. Let's go to Florida. Okay, that crowd's burned out. Let's go to the Northeast. Let's go to Portland. And you had that opportunity, and that all comes through cooperation. And that's how you could really succeed in pro wrestling. It's we don't need to be going to war with each other. We could have that as a story to tell. But as far as business goes, it's so much better just cooperate and be cool with one another, which is why it's so great at NWA 74, where we have a whole bunch of different partnerships, and particularly, MLW is with their Openweight Championship. Davey Richards is going to be defending it on our pay-per-view. You're going to see stars from other wrestling promotions that will be here. There's some big surprises, but you'll see it coming up on the pay-per-view. But if you are a fan of, those other entities that I just mentioned, we're going to be having some people come in that you will recognize and you'll love. And so it's really cool that we're getting all that together for especially the biggest show of the year for us, which is our anniversary show.
Absolutely. We'll get right to that. I'm kind of curious, two more things here. One, what is your preparation like typically for a commentary day, or maybe even more so for an event like NWA 74?
Well, there's a lot, and I think that that's something that I kind of pride myself on. There's some people who can just kind of roll up and they'll see two names and they'll get through it. But, there's so much you need to remember storyline wise and history wise, especially with the NWA. A good example of that is we're bringing back the NWA United States Tag Team Championships. We're crowning new champions on night 2. There are 10 teams that are going to be involved in this battle royal. And I need to know everything about those teams. I need to know if they have, you get a certain team out there and they've got a combination move that's their finisher. Think of, the 3D with the Dudley Boys or whatever. They have a combo thing that you can do there, or the big rig with FTR or whatever it is. So you have to know all that stuff and be able to call it on the fly. And also, there's a lot of history with the NWA United States Tag Team Championship that if you don't do the research, you're really going to be screwed in trying to explain to people the importance of it. And that's such a very interesting championship in the fact that you had different versions of it in different territories. And that was all universally recognized by the NWA. And so you've got all these different lineages and different tag teams that basically held a United States championship in different territories simultaneously. So the list of teams that have actually held that is super extensive over this huge period. And mostly people know what became prominent because of Jim Crockett Promotions and with WCW. And that lineage that, the United States Tag Team Championship continued on with that. And so it's, but that also includes some of the biggest tag teams that have ever, walked the straight face of the earth. Your Midnight Express, your Rock and Roll Express, and the list goes on and on, the Four Horsemen, So it's really interesting to do those deep dives, but you also have to have it all up here. I can have, and you'll see it when you watch wrestling. It's no secret. You can see that there are papers in front of commentary teams, and that's not the menu for what they're going to get at catering. There's their notes for important things that you need to be able to know and quickly reference. So there is a lot. I'd have to say, I do probably the same level of preparation for every show. There's just more of it for a show like NWA 74 because the show is just bigger. It's 2 nights, much like the Crockett Cup is, and there's just a lot to know. There's a lot to talk about. And so that's really important. So like, anybody, and that's a great thing. We're talking over, the internet right now, and there's so many people who are able to do commentary, and then have it broadcast on some online platform, whether that's Title Match or Fight or all these different ways, or even just streamed on YouTube or Facebook. It gives so many people an opportunity to do commentary. And so for those people out there that are kind of starting in it and are doing those independent promotions, like the one thing I always tell them is just make sure you do your homework and make sure you're doing your best to elevate everyone, or as in wrestling terminations, get everyone over, even your heels, even don't just try to get yourself over, because you're not doing anybody any favors. And you know what? I'm not the one that's going out there and falling on my neck. I'm the one that gets to sit in a chair. And the hardest part of my job, especially for NWA 74, is once we start rolling, I can't go to the bathroom. So I'm there for like 5 hours and I need to pee. So, but as far as physically going, that's the most physically taxing part of it. So, be respectful of, the amount of effort that these men, women, warriors, whatever you want to call them, these wrestlers, be respectful of all the work they had to do to get to this point. And also, just be respectful of the promotion that you have and the responsibility you have as the broadcaster to make sure, that rising tide lifts all ships.
Absolutely. Very well said. I've actually been doing some commentary myself with our producers in the comments, and he's going to really appreciate that advice. So thank you very much.
Of course.
So one other question about commentary before we get into NWA 74. This is just a personal thing, opinion. I was listening to the match a couple months ago. It was Nick Aldis, Thomas Latimer, I Quit match. And I thought that was one of your best call. Like, I'm listening to this match. And first of all, the match is excellent. So they're giving you the music, obviously. But I was like, I'd like to ask you about this someday. I don't know what you consider like your best call in wrestling, your worst call, but like, but that's what I'm asking you basically. What are some of your best calls? But like for me in that moment when I was watching, I'm like, this feels like just an old school, like a little bit Terry, obviously Terry Funk and Ric Flair, but I mean like it's another level, but still like this gave me that vibe. I was like, this is great.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'll certainly take that compliment. I do so much with the NWA because we have the 2 television shows, we've got our pay-per-views. I also do a lot of, some of the independent shows in the San Antonio area where I live, and even traveling up to Dallas now to work TSW shows. It's hard. My brain only has so much hard drive space, but I tell you, like that match in particular that you just brought up, there are parts of that where, it does have that. I think the most passionate I can be is when you can tell that there is a true emotional connection in a match. You could just have a match, and as you said, they're the ones playing the music that's there, and it gives me a chance to kind of sing. But when there's that real, because like if it's just this baby face versus this heel and there's no history, there's nothing behind it, I mean, it's fine. You could probably have a good match out of it. But if you have that backstory, and Tom and Nick had that, particularly with that match, I mean, it elevates everything, and it gets you that extra electricity because you feel it more, because what you're feeling is definitely there. It can't be fabricated, it can't be duplicated, it can't be a facsimile. It has to be real. And so when you have those super emotional moments, where there is love and hate and all the different feelings that we feel as people, and it's involved in that story, it makes it a lot easier to tap into that. I think if you even talk to like people who do acting and things like that, if you can find that true emotion and dig down deep into the core, that's what's going to make things so much more real and give you so much more of a connection with your audience that's going to have that same vibe, and they're going to be feeling the same thing too.
Well said. All right, NWA 74, 8 p.m., 8 Eastern for fans in the East Coast. Fight TV.
There we go. Wait, I can't gang signs. I'll go talk to Homicide. He'll smarten me up.
Yeah, so I was thinking we'll just review some of the title matches we got coming up here on the show, because it is such a big show. There's so many matches.
Oh, there's a ton.
Yeah. But one of the first ones that popped up, the Commonwealth Connection, World Tag Team Champions, Harry Smith, Doug Williams versus La Rebellion. I mean, La Rebellion, the former champs, they've been great here. But for me, Harry Smith with Doug Williams, who I thought for mostly was out of wrestling, and now he's back, and he doesn't look like he's really missed much of a beat.
They're an incredible tag team, and just look at the lineage that they've had in the past. I mean, they've been multiple-time tag team champions, with different partners, whether it's with, Nick Aldis or Lance Archer or all these other things in all these other different promotions, whether it was, WWE or New Japan or the list goes on and on with those guys. It's one of those reasons why it's good to have that cheat sheet in front of you, because it's like, well, here's all their championships that they've
right.
tag team separately, but to come together. And I think that just kind of really shows how great of a tag team they are, that, they were familiar with each other, hadn't worked with each other a whole lot, but because they're such good tag team wrestlers, they can have that immediate chemistry. And they really had La Rebellion's number like the whole time. They're the only team to really beat La Rebellion. And that's saying something, because they're an incredible team themselves. And it would have been great to see, La Rebellion and Briscoes go at it some more, and maybe we'll get that opportunity some more. But I'm really excited for that match up there to see if we can get that redemption from La Rebellion. You have to also remember, you talk about it, some especially in certain sports like baseball, there's a lot of superstition that kind of comes with it. And La Rebellion became NWA World Tag Team Champions at the Chase. At NWA 73, so this might be their lucky spot, and that might give them just the edge that they need to be victorious over Doug and Harry. But I know Doug and Harry, they're coming in hot. They're ready. Harry's in the best shape he's ever been in his life, and that's saying something. That guy is Rick S. House, like no kidding. And Doug, with the style that he has and what he does, and he's so smooth, he makes everything look so effortless. He might be getting up there in age, but with the style that he wrestles, it's only making him better. And that's a scary thing that, you've got this guy, some people might say, oh, he's probably past his prime. He's not, because of the style that he has and the expertise that he has, particularly in tag team wrestling.
Absolutely. Another match we got coming up here, Jax Dane defending the NWA National Heavyweight Championship.
Hold on a second. This is interesting. I'm here at the Chase. I got to knock door. Let's see who it's going to be.
I love it.
Hi. Oh, thank you so much.
Like, you don't know where?
I do love
Okay,
it. Thank
cool.
you. You made the right choice.
Good.
Thank you so much. Oh, look at that. These are delicious. Thank you so much. That's what happens when you're VIP.
I love it.
They drop off bottles of wine for you. So that was very nice.
You're running around today, I'm sure.
I'll be enjoying that later. Let's go back. Who are we asking about?
Jax Dane, Scion, NWA National Heavyweight title, Austin Idol in the corner of Scion. What do you think about these two gentlemen? What are they bringing to the table here for this match?
Well, this is another one of those things where there's so much history, emotion, and family ties with it. Jax Dane has been a dominant champion ever since he cashed in his champion series against Anthony Mayweather at Always Ready. He lost the match at first, was started to leave, came back, took advantage of it, held on to that child. And now he's got, Chris Silvio Esquire in his corner. And he is, there's a lot of wrestling lawyers out there, but Chris Silvio is actually doing the job right in the fact that he's defended Jax from having to go and defend the title. He's been able to stop that, and you can't lose the title if you don't wrestle. And so that certainly doesn't make Jax the quote unquote fighting champion, but it allows him to stay champion. And then you have Scion, who has had really a roller coaster ever since he's made his debut here in the NWA. We didn't know, who his father was for a while, but he kept dropping hits that it was an NWA champion. And then it came to be that it was Austin Idol. And, the abandonment that you feel as a child, when you have your father, in particular for a young boy, you have your father step out and he's just not part of your life. It scars you. And it's definitely formed Scion in the basis of who he is as a man. But he's taken all of that rage and taken all that anger. And if you ask me, he's been able to focus it now with the help of his father. He's been able to focus it. And he's completely driven to that NWA National Championship. I know for a fact he's, Jax Dane's a monster of a man. But Scion's been putting weight on. He's looking forward for this fight. And you also have to remember who was the first ever NWA National Heavyweight Champion? Austin Idol. And so the guy knows how to win this championship because he's held it before. He was the inaugural champion, and he's going to be giving all of that information to Sion in hopes that, you know, the baby boy could live that same dream and hold the belt that his daddy did, in the same way that Cody Rhodes, you know, when he won the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship against Nick Aldis, he wanted to hold the same belt that his daddy did with Dusty Rhodes. So I think that puts this at a really high level of, it's not just a championship match, because it means so much to both of the men that are involved. It's not just about the money. It's not just about the fame. There's a lot more in it. And I think that just raises the stakes.
Absolutely. Well said. We're going to go straight to the main events here on Big Night. Camille, Taya Valkyrie, night one, main event. Camille, one of the most dominant, I mean, actually, as far as the modern era, the most dominant NWA Women's Champion, period.
Yep.
Taya Valkyrie, I feel like, matches up well with her, though. Other than Kylie King, I don't think Kylan King, I don't think there's a lot of other women physically that are going to match up as well with Camille.
Yeah, there's being over 6 feet tall and, you know, somewhere around the 200-pound mark. It's hard to find women that are like that and super athletic. And I love seeing what Kylan King has been doing, especially as of late. You know, she's going all over the place, and I see, you know, there's a rocket strapped to her back, and I mean, whew, great. But focusing on this match here, I mean, Camille has made it very, very clear. You know, there's all this talk about. And I think, you know, as a culture and as a history, you know, we're always focused on who's the world's heavyweight champion. And the women's champion feels like it's not at that level of importance. And Camille has elevated it to where, you know, she's been a champion for more than 440 days. She's defended it multiple times. And she considers herself to be the face of the National Wrestling Alliance. And it's hard to argue with that because of what she's been able to do with that championship and the people that she's been able to beat. You know, people like Serena Deeb and Thunder Rosa, you know, the list goes on of all these, you know, luminaries that she's been able to defeat and hold on to that. Melina is another example. And now, but she's going against Taya Valkyrie. And, you know, people will say, you know, guys like Matt Cardona are belt collectors, you know, and there's certain other people that get that title, that moniker. Taya Valkyrie definitely is in that conversation as well. You know, getting the Reina de Reinas championship for AAA, the Impact Knockouts championship. Pretty much anywhere she goes in, gets a title match, wins the title. So the fact that these two are going to be going toe to toe and be the main event for night one, and that's another thing that really kind of shows the importance of where we see the Burks should be. It's a main event championship, and they deserve that main event spot on night one, and they're going to tear the house down. I mean, I'm glad. That's the other good thing about it being the main event is no one has to go after and try to follow it, because it's going to be a barn burner for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's going to be a big night. Obviously, the winner of the Burke will meet the winner of that matchup on night two. Night two is going to be fire. Like you talked about earlier, we got the United States Tag Team Championship, which I always thought of the Midnight Express, like you had mentioned them too. But the main event, Big Tyrus, undefeated television champion, maybe the most physically imposing guy in the NWA. That's saying something, but maybe. Trevor Murdoch, though, right there with him size-wise. Yeah. And you talk about authentic and you talk about real, which you mentioned earlier. Man, it's harder to come more authentic than Trevor Murdoch.
Oh, and especially being in his hometown. And, you know, there's a few things that, you know, Trevor Murdoch, I mean, he was victorious here last year, beating Nick Aldis to become world heavyweight champion, then losing it to Matt Cardona, of course. But, you know, he has a lot of family coming in. This is his hometown. And actually the ring that we have for this match, and a lot of people are going to, I don't know if we've made a big announcement for it, but breaking news on your podcast here. The ring that we're using at one point was owned by Harley Race. It's Harley Race's ring. And it's a ring that Trevor trained in and kind of came up in the business in. And I think, you know, once again, going back to that, you know, baseball superstition sort of feel in there. I mean, if that's something that you kind of buy into, that definitely gives, you know, Trevor Murdoch that extra little bit of motivation, luck, whatever it is you want to call it, that might get him to be able to retain against the Manster. And, you know, Tyrus, you know, we like to talk about his size and being so big and, you know, over 400 pounds. He's actually cut a lot of weight. If you follow him on social media, he's cut a ton of weight in the bad weight department and put on more muscle. And Trevor Murdoch, from what I understand, has been doing the same. So you're going to get two hosses that are at the absolute top of their tier, big guy, big man. This is a heavyweight fight. And this is what the people of St. Louis deserve, is to see a heavyweight fight of this caliber. And then, it's going to be interesting to see, because you would assume, Tyrus being a heel and Trevor Murdoch being a face, and this is his hometown, this is going to be nothing but Trevor Murdoch fans at the Chase. And I don't think it's going to be that way. Tyrus has this monumental fan base, thanks in part to books like this that he's on newsstands or in bookstores now, but also, the reach that he has with Fox and Gutfeld and The Five and all these different shows that he's on. And so I think he's sold a lot of the tickets that are going to be there. There's a lot of, Tyrus fans who may not be big wrestling fans. This might be their first wrestling show that they've been to in decades. There's those people out there that they're just big fans of Tyrus. They see that he's got that belt. And you know what? They live in the greater St. Louis area. And so they're going to come to the show just to see what's going to happen with their favorite Fox star. And hopefully what my goal is hopefully we can get those people to continue to enjoy professional wrestling that may have fallen out of the fold, that maybe no longer were interested in it for whatever reason. It happens. There's just generational things, and people get busy, they get kids and whatever, and they just decide, they stop watching. You could stop anybody in any airport. And it happens to me a lot because, people are chatty and they're like, do you watch pro wrestling? Well, I used to watch it back in, Stone Cold. And that's about when I stopped. Well, and there was the Shield, and then I stopped watching it. But if we could get some of those people to come in to the Chase, buy a ticket to watch Tyrus, but they're watching a whole show leading up to it, and they go, you know what, I'm going to keep watching this NWA stuff because this is entertaining, this is fun, and this is wrestling as it's meant to be. That's what I really hope comes out of it. As far as who's going to win that match, man, that is a coin flip right there. I would want to put a bet on either one. But I can assure you that it's going to be violent. And I don't know what you have to do to either of these men to keep them down for that 3 count. I mean, Tyrus just in singles competition, defending that television title, undefeated. There's a lot of buzz. There's a lot of energy. And it's definitely deserves its spot in the main event for something like NWA 74.
Absolutely, man. Well, thank you for doing this, because I know you're very busy. The next few days, it's going to be insane. Why don't you just anything? Obviously, you talk about a promotion for NWA 74 this weekend. You can tell people about your social media, anything you want to promote.
Sure. Look, I just want to tell people, head to nationalwrestlingalliance.com. That's got all of our information for this show. We'll be making announcements for upcoming shows. We are on pay-per-view through Fight TV. You can buy a 2-day bundle, which saves some money, watch the pay-per-view, and a lot of exciting stuff that's going to be coming with the National Wrestling Alliance. If you want to get a hold of me, you can find me on Twitter at Joe Galli News. You punch my name into Google, all my stuff comes up. So, but I want to thank your fans for tuning into this, and I hope that they do tune in for 74. And don't forget, folks, the show doesn't just start with the pay-per-view time. We've got an hour-long pre-show each night. And we've got what I would consider main event matches on those pre-shows. That is 100% free. That's through our NWA YouTube channel. That's going to start at 6 p.m. Central. So if you're still on the fence, like you don't know if you want to spend the money or not, watch for free. Watch the pre-show, and I guarantee you, halfway through that pre-show, you're going to be finding the Fight TV app to make sure you can order the pay-per-view.
All right, awesome stuff.